all across the world, where we will be talking about different topics that I think might interest you. I am James Soul. I am the creative director of the International Institute of Humanology, and we are bringing this live on Facebook for you to your enjoyment. So thank you to all of our wonderful experts for being here with us today. I will be giving brief introductions of who each person is, and then we will be proceeding on to the questions. So let's start with the introductions. The first person that I want to introduce is Rumaisa Reem. Rumaisa is a leadership expert and a personal and professional mastery coach. She is the founder of Rumaisa Reem Leadership in United Kingdom and Pakistan. Rumaisa has been mentoring, curating, and imparting learning experiences globally for over a decade and to a vast array of organizations and individuals. Thank you, Rumaisa. Thank you for being here with us today. It's a wonderful
Thank you, James.
pleasure. Then may I introduce you to Hamza Taqi. Hamza Taqi is a Master of Performance Consultant, a co-author, a chartered marketeer, and speaker. His passion for people development has earned him the nickname of Mr. Excitement. He has 13 years of working experience in banking and 7 years in telecom. In 2008, he was founded Knowledge Consulting Company and the Knowledge Training Center in Kuwait. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here with us today. It is such a wonderful honor. Thank you.
Thank you. The honor is mine, my friend. Thank you so much, James.
And then may I introduce Sonmi Park. Sonmi is a medical doctor born in Korea and trained in Germany, now based in Switzerland. She is an executive in drug development and product launches in a pharmaceutical industry. And with her experience in leading office and field-based teams in Europe and in several continents and globally. Thank you so much, Sonmi, for being here with us. It is wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much.
It's my honor to be here. Thank you.
And then finally, Jessica J. Lockhart, the founder and creator of the International Institute of Humanology. She is an international author, motivational speaker. She has created wonderful and amazing tools that are helping so many people around the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here with us. It is such a wonderful pleasure.
Thank you, James, for that kind introduction. I am thrilled to be here, especially with such renowned and important co-panelists. Thank you for being here, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So let's begin. The topic of today is the new leader in the new normal. So what does that mean? Let's find out. So the first question that we're going to have is, like most professionals, new leaders will also have to reinvent themselves in the new normal. So what do you think they need to focus on? Rumaisa, if you could be so kind as to answer the question.
Well, I would, the new normal is here to stay. So let's start with this. And leadership is all about flexibility and adaptation. But I would like to introduce this thing which I love calling the 3 I's principle, because it's always nice to shorten things down, compact them in, and then remember them. So the 3 I's principle, which I believe leaders in the new normal need to focus on. The first I is influence, which is we need to develop new leaders around us. So it's very essential to elevate and uplift others around each other at this time in age, where things are so uncertain. We need to have a mushrooming of leaders around us who share our vision and who can pass it forth. So the first I is influence, which is really, really important. A mind tattoo that I have is talk less and do much, much more. So the second I would say that we need to focus on is impact. The need of the hour is to take action, a lot of us we love talking and we love discussing ideas and we love discussing visions, which is fantastic. But the need of the hour is action. So anyone, such as yourself, when you're taking action, this is what is the need of the hour. We need to focus on impact. And the third and the most difficult, I believe, that we need to focus on, which is the third I, is inspiration. Now, maintaining inspiration is one of the most difficult things in today's day and age. But however, those people who are the most inspired at heart are the ones who bring forth the most amount of innovations, be it an Elon Musk, be it a Steve Jobs, be it a James Soul, Sonmi Park, Hamza Taqi, Jessica. Being inspired, anyone who's an inspired individual, an inspired leader, if you focus on inspiration within, that comes out brilliantly. So the 3 I's are influence, impact, and inspire. I believe that is what we need to focus on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rumaisa. Hamza, please, the same question. You have your microphone muted. Perfect. Now we can hear you.
Excellent. I like the word focus. I'm sorry to get you to get this now. I hope they will answer it somehow. Yeah, the word is focus. And what we need as leaders to focus on is our people, really. It is whether we are in a regular times or in a crisis time. We need to focus on our people, and in order for us to focus on our people, we need to be self-aware of ourselves as well. So we need to go in and find our values. But of course, as a leader now, you have to balance two things: the short terms, because now you need to think of a plan, prepare yourself now that everybody's opening up and slowly the workforce is coming to work. So you need to plan the re-onboarding your people back, because not all of them, they're going to come back. And you need to, the processes will change. So you need to focus really on the short term, on the processes, and maybe the operation of the organization that you are leading, that you need to change it and to make it adaptable and more flexible, with negotiating that with your people, with getting them involved, communicating with them more than before. Now is being compassionate as a leader and opening all the channels for communication with your people is an important factor for you to succeed post-corona. So I say focusing on your people, communicate with them, and involve them in creating solutions to change the few processes in the short term, so you get into at least a reasonable business operation going on, and then learn from that and adapt and change, and as the world opens up again, you'll be ready for opportunities and prepared, mentally with your people, focusing even in sometimes we don't think about it in the regular days, is their well-being, even their family members, really touching and asking questions and having one-on-one, being on Zoom or a group meeting on daily basis to really connect with your people. So the fear and the anxiety is lowered, and they are ready to perform and give you their best of their skills, knowledge, and behavior and attitude, hopefully.
Wow. Thank you, Hamza. Thank you for that answer. It was very interesting. Thank you so much. Sonmi, the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Oh, no, that's all good. James, I thought, Hamza, I thought it's me talking when you spoke. When you
Like-minded
started
people,
focus,
like-minded
right?
people.
Yeah, no, so when you started focus, I thought absolutely. But then you said exactly what I really have in mind and which I think is the top priority at the moment, but also in the near future, is that focus on the people. And that's exactly what you said. And you also said, and this is actually what I kind of, written down, is focus on the well-being of your people, on the team. So it's, first of all, we have to assume that everybody is affected and everybody went through and is going through changes and crisis, whether it's a small one or big change. Everybody's affected somehow, whether it's their children who are now doing homeschooling, or whether they are, some of us, we lost our jobs, right? Or our
Absolutely.
partners, are losing their jobs. So,
Yeah.
in it just being fearful, but also anxious about their health, and about, health of their parents, everything else, this is really which drives probably most of us, or even every of us. And this is something we have to do now, but also in near future. And probably that's something we always should do, is focus on the well-being of our people, but also of others, because, it's a multiplier. If our people, our teams are doing well and are stable and healthy, they actually do transmit this, to their families and to their peers and to their friends and networks. And we have to be prepared, and we have to help each of our team members to go through this time and be ready for changes. The new world is different and will be different. And I'm expecting that next year will be an entirely different world probably. And hopefully, it's a better and healthier world. But again, that would also come with other changes, whether it's, to find a new job, or schooling again is a bit different, whatever. This is something where we as leaders, we have the duty. It's really our job to help each of our team members through this time and be ready for changes. And this is something we don't know what the changes are, but there are techniques. Jessica, you are here as the expert. There are tools and being prepared, really internally to welcome the changes and to be adaptable and to go with the change. And I think this is something we probably should focus now, in the next few months.
Wow, very powerful words, Sonmi. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jessica, please, if you could answer the same question.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Well, we've been talking about big words. Rumaisa, you spoke about things like influence and inspiration. Hamza, you spoke about focus. So did Sonmi. And all those things are fundamental. I fully, totally agree with you. But there's one little tiny detail that I'd like to add to everything you said. And that is that it should all begin by you. If you're a leader, it's great to take care of your people. It's great to focus on your people, to influence your people, but you should start by yourself. I think it's time for leaders to go back to taking care of themselves first, to becoming the role model in and of themselves for all others. If you're taking care of your people and they see you exhausted and not really ready and not really well taken care of, what kind of message are you actually transmitting? If you want to inspire them, but you're only words and no real actions in yourself, how are you going to teach them? You know that an image is worth 1,000 words, and a lot of influencers and a lot of inspirational people make that mistake. They focus on others instead of first working on themselves. So I would add another important word to the list of words we've been mentioning today here, and that is knowledge. I think knowledge is going to be key in the new world, but not knowledge regarding new techniques or new processes or new ways of doing things. No, human knowledge. I think that COVID-19 or coronavirus made us realize that all companies need their human component. More than ever, the human component has to survive and be strong if we want the company to thrive. Because techniques can fail, technology can fail, even the economy can fail. We're seeing it everywhere. Which are the companies that are surviving today? The companies that are surviving are the ones who have a very strong human component. The human beings are the ones keeping companies alive. And leaders are, first and foremost, human beings as well. So they need knowledge about human beings. They need knowledge about themselves. And by knowing and understand human beings, they'll be able to first care for themselves, become that role model, and then help human beings thrive. I think one of the main lessons in this new world is that we have to go back to basics. We have to go back to us, the human being. We are at the core of everything. A leader would not lead anybody without being a human being first. And who's a leader leading? Human beings. So that's our first step. We have to go back to basics. And tied to that, I would like to say that by acquiring that knowledge and focusing on ourselves first, we have to realize what styles of leadership we're using and displaying, because we're going to be facing a new normal where people are going to be working remotely, others are going to be in the company. We have to start spreading our knowledge of human beings to help them the way they need to be helped. Every human being is different. We cannot lead everybody the same way. We can't. You know, some people have an instrumental type of motivation. They need goals, very clear goals. As leaders, we have to know that about them, so we can give them what they need. Other people might have more integrative types of motivation. And that means they need to focus on the well-being of the group. They need to focus on strengthening the company, because that's what they're there for. And we need to know that if we're going to give them what they need. So in my opinion, the new leader in the new world has to go back to basics first, has to understand human beings, and first and foremost, has to know him or herself. That's my answer, James.
Thank you, Jessica. I hadn't thought about it that way. That's actually a very good point. Thank you. You've given me a lot to think about. Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the second question, may I just remind our audience that you can ask us any question that you have on our comment section on the Facebook Live that you're watching right now. We will answer them right at the end of this Human Conversations. So please, 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 send us all of your questions. We'll be glad to answer all of them. So thank you. Okay, so now that I've given that little short message for our audience, let's keep going with the next question, shall we? So the second question is, what is the best advice for leaders in managing distant teams? So if Hamza could please answer this question, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Sure. We said focusing about your people, and I believe now we know for sure, like as a leader, to communicate with your team, that it's going to be totally different. And one thing that we are sure about, that it's the work of the office at work is not going to be the same. Some people will be working virtually from home, and basically this is a new norm for your team, because they're used to sitting together in one room in certain time in the meeting room, where they exchange ideas and discuss strategies or during meetings. Now the same meetings has to be through virtual platforms, and there are so many virtual platforms that the leader now must be playing around with and testing with his team, which are spreaded, and there is like, I feel with the technology, leaders can be closer to their team members than in the old days. And I think this is advantage, because See, you can opt in any meeting that your team is having as a leader. You can have a daily meeting with your team. You can have a weekly meeting with your team. You want to discuss the goals, the action, the results that are happening, because now it's different. It's a different, you're not seeing each other face to face, but you can make this interaction as if it's face to face. It's the same thing. Nothing changed, but you need to be more aware of your people personality, like Jessica said, and where they come from, or even the environment they have at home. And there is one critical factor that, because I'm working at home, and my leader, for example, is working in the head office, because I am at home, he or she feels, my leader feels that I have, ample time. I can work anytime. I can reply to email or WhatsApp call or a call like this. No, I have another life as well. So we have to really look at our team members and not expect them to work 24 hours or to be responsive to our calls 24 hours. They will be stressed. And we have to factor the fact that they are working from home, and we need to remember them sometimes, because some teams will be working, some of the teams are working in the head office and the rest are working from home, and we meet in the head office with the team that are there face to face, and we forget about the teams that are in the, and they will feel lonely. They will feel lonely. So what we do, even if we have a team in the physical team with us, we should do the meeting virtually so everybody can connect and they feel that they are part of the team and they feel they are valued. And if you need to be more clearer in your goal setting and in your communications and your expectations with your team. And I see this technology, everything is recorded, even the meeting, you don't need to minute it. You can, any of the attendees can go back and look at it and see what he's supposed to do if he didn't get the idea from the meeting, for example. So there are many things you can do, even icebreakers, in those meetings, because they could be boring and people sitting for half an hour or 30 minutes, watching each other like we are doing now. But what you can do, you can have, everybody talks about their day, what happened during their day, something from not necessarily work related, but to interact and to chat with each other and tell each other what's happening to each team members. And this can take 1 minute, 60 seconds. So they are, they feeling each other. They're feeling the boundaries or the bond that they have, the bond that they have together as a team, and they will feel compassionate to each other, and they will feel that they are really united again as a team, even if they are working in a virtual matter. You can have, somebody comes up with a YouTube, his favorite YouTube, to share with the team. Somebody has a new knowledge, as Jessica said, can share it in those meetings. But we need to have a clear agenda for the meeting and result. So everybody knows what he is or she is supposed to do, and they will be accountable for it. But we don't want to micromanage. We need to trust our people and give them the trust, because this is the foundation that a good team is built on, is the trust. But some leaders, because their team is all over the place geographically, they feel that they are not doing their work, or they feel like they have to micromanage. No, you should be situational according to your team members' skills and attitude. Are they, fully developed on the task that you are giving them? Then you give them full autonomy. You give them their freedom. They give you the deadline when they will finish that task or that project because they are the expert. But some of your team will be maybe, they never done this task, So you need to give them more time and more, one-on-one. So you coach them into developing that skills. So you develop your people as well, even if in a virtual world. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hamza. Yes, teamwork is very important. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here, right? How humans are the key component of all of this. So thank you for that answer.
You're welcome, sir.
Rumaisa, if you could please answer the same question.
I believe Hamza has very comprehensively covered most of what is very essential when we are managing distant teams. But just like we are here right now, a team is not just your work team, but it is the people who you interact with on a daily basis, such as we're a team of people here right now who are putting forth an important message. In this context and in the context of working with your own work team as well, I believe one thing that is very essential nowadays is communication. When we're communicating, we need to look at capsulizing things because yes, we are available. The world has become border-free, which is fantastic. But at the same time, in order to be mindful of the next person's time and of your own time, so that you can focus on yourself, as Jessica put very rightly a while ago, it is very essential to capsulize things because as we know, everything has become capsulized. We need to adapt to that, and that is something that managing distant teams it's a very essential component. The second component I'd like to touch upon is technology. So when we're managing distant teams, we need to familiarize ourselves with the technologies that are available, and we need to invest in technology at this point. We need to invest in having the right bandwidths. We need to invest in using the right body language. We need to invest in having the right, I see Sonmi nodding along with me and agreeing that there's a lot technologically that one needs to invest in. And the third component is the human component, where we need to be mindful and care for our teams. When we move from I to we, which is team, and we need to impact the world. So moving from I to we to the world, it is essential for the world to feel compassion for each other. We need to be compassionate towards our team's need when we're looking at managing our own work-life balance, which is very essential so that we don't drain ourselves and we take out the victory hour every morning and we focus on ourselves, our mental well-being. We also need to look at our team feeling good. So we need to show compassion, we need to show care, we need to be mindful of how stressed they may be. Every day is a new challenge. So when we are involving ourselves in the new normal, it is very essential to look at the human component and see how we can provide comfort to our teams in order to achieve the highest level of effectivity. I believe these three are the need of the hour, and everyone else has covered everything beautifully.
Thank you so much, Rumaisa. Thank you for that answer. Yeah, it seems as though all of you are agreeing with each other. It's very interesting to see. So thank you for the answer. Sonmi, same question.
I've been working with teams and individuals around the world, and almost everyone is actually a kind of, I call it solo person or single player, because it's the nature of these big, international teams being field-based, but also for people in the offices. But let's really focus on the distant teams. I think my assumption is always that my team member is actually quite isolated and very lonesome from the professional perspective. And actually me as the manager, I'm probably the only communication channel, or in most cases, I'm the only communication channel. So I think there are two things which I need to do is, first, I need to be present for these people, right? So I have to be approachable and visible, almost unlimited. And number two is really to provide, because they are working individually and rather lonesome, in most cases with other customers, so external facing, but for the internal encouragement, motivation, training, etc., I really need to provide a structure. It's easier if you have a team based in an office, and usually in bigger teams, 5 people, 50 people, 100 people in an office, to provide a structure. It sometimes comes automatically, but not always. But what I've experienced is that we really need to, to focus much more now. And in the new world, probably that's number one focus, is making sure that you are extremely mindful to structure your teamwork and your team processes really from the scratch. You cannot just assume, oh, Suzanne is going to call me if she has a question. That's not true. So you have to really provide one, let's say, informal kind of set of meetings, informal opportunities to call you, to connect you, but also for me to call them and to connect, but not always ad hoc. Again, we have to provide a structure. And it's up to, to organize team meetings. Hamza, you made the point. Now, because we don't have an office time, for example, you have to provide now proactively a hangout kind of session. It's like a coffee morning. So my boss did this, recently. He introduced this a few months ago, when this lockdown started. He turned this coffee morning from the office now into a Google or into a Zoom coffee morning. So the topics were never serious. It's much more, hey, how are you doing? Where are you going to? What are you having? It was mandatory to have a cup of coffee with us, and even, having a breakfast while we are having this Zoom meeting. And it was scheduled for an hour. Again, you need some structure, but the people could look forward to that. And it was certainly not mandatory to join, okay? So this is extremely important. It was a place to go to and just to chat with your manager, with your colleagues and whoever. Some of us, we brought our kids with us, okay? That was perfectly fine. And this was probably the best time. This is something, you probably have then to introduce if more and more people are home office based. And then the other part is you then need to structure extremely consciously how you want to enhance the team communication. So whether you want to have weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, whatever, listen to your people. They will tell you how often they would like to connect with you and with their peers. And you as a leader, you are responsible to set it up in a structured way. Why I'm so focusing on the structure, Hamza, and you make a point as well, is that it's absolutely not true that people can work, because they are home office based 24 hours, here and there, whatever. Be mindful of time differences. Be mindful that because they are working now from home, they're probably much more involved actually in other duties, like, bringing the kids to the school or looking after homeschooling. So be mindful and check first with your team when is the best slot actually to have these meetings, and stick to this. Do not change it. Have that in a regular calendar so people can really plan around these meetings and making sure that they can, plan their, let's say, lunchtime. And also, please respect the family time. Do not schedule any meeting if this is a dinner time for the family. Okay, so never. Sometimes it's difficult to work through, let's say 3 different time zones, but you will always find a slot which is perfect for everyone. So do not do a call at 6 p.m. for an American, or 6 p.m. for a European person, or 6 p.m. for an Asian person. You will find a slot, but be super mindful what you are doing, because this working time is working time, and individual timing, private time is private. Whether you work from home, whatever, be even more mindful than you are doing actually this in an office.
Thank you, Sonmi. Thank you for that answer. I hadn't thought of it that way, of being mindful of people's traditions when it comes to work. That's very insightful. Thank you. Jessica, same question.
Thank you so much. Well, I, of course, agree with everything everybody said so far. It is true we have to be mindful with all our workers, our employees, our subordinates, our colleagues. It is true we have to consider their own characteristics. We have to create spaces where we can talk. But I'd go a little farther again, and I'd like to say, okay, when you were in the office, you had different kinds of people, right? Different members in your team. Some members of your team really needed that time with you all the time. It was like they needed to go into your office 3 times a week, whereas there were others that you almost had to drag into your office to be able to talk to because they were solo players and they were happy like that. Well, with the new normal, with the working online, with distant collaboration, this is sometimes harder to manage because, well, we don't see that people. And we might create a structure to try and fit everybody that will suit nobody. So be careful. Try to really create a structure like that coffee morning that Sonmi was talking about that is agreeable to everybody. You have to somehow tailor make whatever opportunities you're creating to your own colleagues, to your own members in the team, so that they all can find the best suit. So for example, not everybody likes working at home. There are some extroverts, for instance, that really miss the human connection. They want to be with people. They want to interact with people, not through the camera like we're doing today. And that people might need closer contact than the introvert who'd rather just work at home and who's happy working at home. I have 2 children, and my youngest, my 17-year-old daughter, was telling me the other day how happy she is with online schooling. She discovered it and she loves it because we're in Panama and, well, children tend to be quite loud here and she doesn't concentrate easily if there's noise around her. And being at home and studying on her own really helped her have the best grades ever because she could focus on her work because there was no noise in the classroom and she wasn't disturbed by the noise. Here you have an example of someone who's really flourishing and thriving in isolation and in distant working. But not everybody's like that. Some people do need that connection. So you have to really make sure you're giving all the members in your team that which they need. Not the whole team, but each of the members. And that brings us back to what we said before. You really actually need to know the members in your team carefully, so you can offer them whatever it is that they need. Some people might be perfectly happy with that coffee morning once a month, but others might need the coffee morning plus 2 short meetings with some of the members of the team. And this is where I say, don't limit the get-togethers to just you and the members in your team. Make sure that they also interact among themselves. Remind them that they can also connect, that they don't need you, that they can create those meetings on their own and they can interact without you being present. This brings me to another very important topic that I want to highlight, and that is delegation. How do we delegate? If we are in an office, we might have our own tools, techniques, and tips on how to delegate and be effective about it. But with this new distant working, we might have to expand our toolbox. We might have to find new ways to delegate because delegating has become or has acquired a new dimension. We have to delegate virtually, and that also adds an extra dimension to delegation. We have to make sure that the instructions we're giving are fully understood. We have to double check and triple check, and we have to make sure that what we're offering our people is what they need at all times, and that everybody who needs that information actually gets it. You know, when you have a personal face-to-face meeting with your people, you see their reactions. But sometimes when we're in an online meeting like today, look at all those videos that are turned off. People might be listening, they might be observing my nonverbal communication, but other people might just be dozing off or might just be playing on their telephones, and we don't know. If we're visibly present, if we are really present in the flesh, to say somehow, we see, we connect, we check. But be careful how you communicate today virtually, because you might not be getting your message across. And the last thing I wanted to say about distant working is that we have to realize there's a big change in the world today, and that is the huge, unbelievably huge increase of fear. fear has skyrocketed. People are so fearful today compared to what they were 6 months ago, because for a lot of people, the world just went upside down overnight. You know, everything they held true, everything they believed changed overnight. And a lot of people are really suffering from anxiety, from fear, from panic attacks. And they're not going to tell you that in a normal, regular meeting, are they? And some people are trying to handle their fear without really sharing it because, well, fear is considered to be a weakness in many societies. As a great leader, you have to realize that those people who are isolated at home might be having tremendous fear. And I would make a special effort to speak about this with each member in our teams so they feel connected and they can address their fear, their stress, their anxiety in the right way. Because when people are stressed, and I include stress in fear, and we do that in humanology, when people are stressed or fearful, that paralyzes them, that gets them exhausted, that lowers their level of concentration, that reduces their effectiveness and effectivity. So I would recommend that as leaders, you double check and triple check the level of fear all the members in your team might be suffering from. And that's something we're going to be encountering as the months progress more and more often, because, well, I think the seed was planted, and the fear of something like this happening again is already deeply rooted in people's subconscious. So I would then summarize by reinforcing, yes, communication skills, by all means. The social connection, you know, not everybody needs the same social connection, but we have to offer it the way people need it, because we're all different. We have to adapt once again. Then delegation techniques. We need to learn how to delegate properly in a virtual, distant way. And finally, handling fear, which I think is one of the key obstacles we're going to be facing in the nearby future. Well, this is what I wanted to say, and this is my answer to this second question, James.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for that answer. So handling our fears, wow. I will have to analyze which ones I have later on this evening. So thank you, thank you. Let's move on to our third and final question. So like that, we have a little bit of space for our audience's questions to be answered. May I remind our audience that you can write down your questions for us on the comment section of our Facebook Live that you're watching right now with us, and we will gladly answer all of your questions at the end of this human conversations. So please stay tuned. So the third and final question for today's roundtable is, what do you think will be the most necessary skill of a new leader in the new normal, and why? Sonmi, if you could please answer this question.
Sure, thank you, James. New world, new normal, but probably a very old skill is, and that's something, you know, you can probably already can guess from my previous thoughts, is communication. So it's all about communication skill, but much more, it needs to be proactive, and it has to be caring. So it's not for the sake of communication, but making sure that you reach out to your people anytime, whenever you think it's important. And even if you have any doubts, never think that you over communicate. That's something I learned, you know, decades ago from probably the best boss I've ever had. She said to me, Sonmi, you can never over communicate. So if you want to communicate, do it. And sometimes, you know, it's probably a little bit too much or whatever, but Jessica, you brought it up as well, is that for some people it might be over, but for others it was absolutely important. And therefore, if you need to address this to a kind of, you know, to a big team or to a group of people, you rather than go to the, you know, making sure that who needs communication gets that communication. And proactiveness in this world, because you do not see your people in the office necessarily, you really need to kind of be very mindful that whenever you know something and you believe that it's something which your team should know, do not wait for another day, just communicate.
Thank you, Sonmi. Thank you for that answer. Communication is very important nowadays with us being isolated. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. Hamza, same question.
A skill for a leader, it cannot be one skill, but I feel envisioning the future and giving hope to your people is very vital these days, because as everybody said, everybody is uncertain. We live in a VUCA world, and this is really uncertainty. So you as a leader, you are on the stage and people are watching you, your people are watching you. So you need to be more confident, more knowledgeable about what's going on, putting the facts together, and then, you know, having a deep thinking about your existing vision, how you can change it, and obviously listening skills is very important. That you know, as a leader, you want to listen to your team member. And really, I mean, we don't need leaderships in the regular days, because in the regular days, everybody knows what they're doing and they're going in the process and they're doing everything they have to do. We need a true leadership. Now is the time. This is where you test the quality of leadership, when you have crisis like this. And you as a leader, you need to have a deep thinking with your team and envision and communicate that vision and listen to your team, and really, you know, like as our friend said, you know, continuous communication. You never over communicate. So they understand where we are going, how we're going to get there, and they will do their best to reach, you know, to the port or to the destination that we want. And but while we are enjoying the journey, the best thing is the journey. We have to enjoy it. This is our life. I mean, we spend most of our time at work, and it has to be fun. We have to play. We have to do it in a much fun way. That way, our immune system gets strong, and our well-being will be good, and we can contribute to the world, and we can help and assist. So being a servant leader and focusing on your people, as we said in the beginning, and listening to them, and envisioning the future and communicating the vision all the time, I think that would be the best way to handle during and post-corona period for your team. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamza. Thank you for that answer. That was very interesting. Thank you. Rumaisa, same question. Oh, 1 second, Rumaisa, we can't hear you. I think that your microphone is muted. If you could please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, right. I like to mute it when someone else is speaking, in case just a bit of noise comes through. Just be mindful. Hamza briefly touched upon this. Adversity is what we're going through, right? And we're talking about leadership. Leaders are not created when leaders are created in storms. So I think is leadership in adversity. In the Robben Islands,
I'm sorry, Rumaisa, I'm going to have to interrupt you. James, I don't know if you can hear Rumaisa properly. I cannot. Rumaisa, I think your connection is somehow failing a little bit. Can you please check? Or maybe it is ours here.
None of us can hear you. You are frozen on the screen as well. It's all right. These kind of things happen. We have technical difficulties, especially when everyone's online nowadays. So please, our audience, bear with us just a little bit while we try and sort all of this out. So just give us a couple of seconds, please, and we'll try and see if we can get the connection again. And if not, we will allow one of the other persons to answer the question while she is able to reconnect with us. So, okay, I think that we might have solved the issue. Rumaisa, can you hear me? Can you?
I'm sorry about that.
No worries. I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you. Should I continue? Do we have the time?
Of course.
Okay, all right. Like I said, we need to invest in technology. And I'm here in Pakistan right now, where the light tends to go. So when the electricity goes, we switch to the generator. And that's where a lag comes in. So I'd like to propose a question to everyone here. When we talk about leadership through adversity, what's the mother of invention? We all know the answer to that. Anyone can answer at this point, open their mic.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Absolutely. But what's the grandmother of invention?
Crisis.
Crisis. Exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. Problem is the grandmother of invention. And at this point, there are a lot of problems in life, which means there's so many opportunities that come out of crisis. We need to embrace that crisis, and we need to cultivate and reboot the leader within to not just wait for the light bulb to come on, but to create a torch and move forward. So this is the need of the hour, to embrace adversity and then to create opportunities and move forward. That's what I'd like to say.
Thank you very much, Rumaisa. Thank you for the answer, and thank you for being able to come back to our wonderful roundtable discussion. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the same question, please, Jessica.
Thank you so much again for asking me these interesting questions. I think these are the key to really preparing ourselves for the new normal. I am always last, so I always tend to agree with everybody who spoke before, because everything they said makes total sense. Yes, we need all those. Those are the skills we need. But I would also add the number one skill that I, of course, as a humanologist, cannot neglect to mention, which is humanity. I think that the new leader in the new normal needs to be really, really human, so they can really take advantage of all the powers and strengths that human beings have. I think the new leader needs to be compassionate. The new leader needs to understand people's limitations, people's biases, people's backgrounds, and really, really feel compassion. And that will give the leader a new way, a new pathway into solving problems. Because when we understand what the limitation is and we feel sorry for that limitation, we feel compassionate for that person who has that limitation, we can start looking for another way to solve it. But unless we are like that, we just condemn that person, we just criticize that person, and we don't build on that person's other skills. So I think the new leader needs to be more compassionate and has to really focus on the gratitude. The new leader has to acknowledge everybody and really express their gratitude for the effort they're making. A lot of people are going to have to make new efforts that go beyond their regular work and their regular skills. They're going to have to reinvent themselves, because the new normal is going to require reinvention of every human being. The world is different. We have to adapt. We have to reinvent. So that effort, that extra added effort, has to be recognized and appreciated. And last but not least, as Hamza said, it's not just one thing, but we need quite a few skills. I would like to say that the new leader needs to have a lot of empathy, because when we place ourselves in the shoes of another person, when we really try to take their perspective, whatever that perspective is, our worldview expands. If we only look at the world our own way, we only see what we can see, what we already know. But everything that is outside our scope, everything that is outside our worldview is not seen, it's not contemplated, it's not even perceived sometimes. So by being more empathetic and by adopting other people's points of views and perspectives, we actually widen and expand our worldview, which helps us see, which helps us grow, which helps us expand. And by growing and expanding, we can not only help ourselves, which is what I said at the beginning of today's panel, but we can better help other human beings. We understand them better, and by understanding them better, we can give them whatever it is that they need so they can grow. And by growing, they become more powerful members of our team. So all in all, I think that the new leader has to become a human leader. We're not working with machines. We're not working with just technology. We're using technology to work together with other human beings. So let's use humanity as the basis for our growth and our expansion. That is what I would say is the most important skill that the new leader is going to need in the new normal, James.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for that answer. I believe that actually concludes all of the 3 questions that we had for this wonderful roundtable discussion. So let's open up the section for questions. Let's hear from our audience. I see here that I've received a question from one of the audience members that's watching us through Zoom. The question is, and this is for any of our experts to answer. If all of you want to answer it, that's wonderful. If just one of you wants to answer, that's also wonderful. There's no pressure. So the question is, under the current circumstances, all team members working through their home may have difficulty monitoring and coaching. So what is the best way to pursue this? And does it depend on results only? Whoever would like to answer this question, just unmute yourself and please go for it.
Okay, could I try and answer the question first?
Of course.
So if I understood the question correctly, and if the person is hearing me and I didn't understand it properly, they can write again. How are we going to help people? How are we going to monitor what people are doing? And how are we going to coach people into improving themselves? Well, I think this brings us back to what we said before, communication. In this case, communication is fundamental and delegation skills are fundamental. We need to create and establish new control systems that will set specific goals and specific measurements for each of the steps to be taken. And because we're not there to see things, because we cannot verify things with our own eyes as people are working online, we're going to need to create those other controlling revision systems. And we're going to have to establish very clear goals, very clear steps to describe everything that has to be done. And each of those steps will need their own measurement techniques. How are we going to measure whether a person is making progress with a report? Well, maybe we have to go back to school techniques and we have to say, okay, first draft, second draft, what is the final version? That kind of perhaps more detailed monitoring systems that can be done online. And because of technology, we can take advantage of a lot of applications today that make it easier, that help us share documents, information, materials, so we can share, we can view them all online at the same time. And I think all these techniques and all these materials have to be implemented and used to our advantage. I hope this is an answer to the person who asked the question.
I would like to add something here. Thank you, Jessica. That's a very good answer. Now, I mean, we're talking about coaching distance team. And this is one of the major objectives of a leader is to develop his or her team members. And the best way is coaching. And I believe that, you know, using Zoom or any kind of platform technology, even WhatsApp, communicating with the team member. First, you need to diagnose that team member in terms of the skill or the goal that he is supposed or she is supposed to do. Where are they? Are they really expert in that in conducting or doing that job or that project or that task, or are they new for it? And you need to diagnose this. And basically, you have two factors there to help you to diagnose either the competency and the commitment. So you need to identify, and you need to be too close with your people when you are communicating via, all virtual means. You need to identify this person who is in front of me. Is he really competent? Can he do that job? And if he can, when he can finish it, and how long does he need, and what sort of tools that he needs to help him, accomplish that task. And the second thing is he committed to do it? Because sometimes if I'm not committed, I will not do the job properly, So you need to choose. And usually, if it's a new employee or not even a new employee, experienced employee, and you give him a new task or new project, usually the commitment is high. But if it's a new project, the competency is low. So depending on their competency and the commitment, you can know what sort of more of a directive behavior you're going to give that person, or more of maybe supporting behavior. And you need to gauge that. And in each step, you need to find out the competency and the commitment rate for the task that the person is doing, and then help them out according to that by giving them either a lot of directions or giving them a lot of support, but depend where they are. Like if I am an expert in report writing and I report to Jessica and she gives me a task to write a report, and if I'm the expert, I don't need guidance, do I? But if I'm not an expert, I need guidance. And now the problem with sometimes leaders, sometimes they confuse and they give directions for the people who doesn't need it. And they give support for the people who don't need support, they need directions. Sometimes we do that for our kids, when they ask for help. For example, my daughter comes and she tells me, I have an issue with the math. She needs directions. And I tell her, no, you can do it. I'm sure you can do it. I didn't help her. I put her in a bad position. Now she is more anxious because she needed a direction from me, and all what I gave her is support. Sometimes it's the other way around. When the person needs supports, I'm giving directions. So I'm not being situational. And that's usually what happens. And sometimes we lose good talent because of our interaction and the way we communicate with our talent. We don't know how to diagnose and then, give them the right task or the right project.
Thank you, Hamza. Thank you for that answer. Does anybody else want to answer?
James, I think this question is extremely important, and we miss this somehow. From my perspective, the new way or more focused way to work from distance or from home more and more is actually not, you cannot actually combine this with the policy or with the expectation that your people work from 9 to 5. If that's your expectation, the new world will not, bring you anything. Because if you believe that people, should work from 9 to 5, regardless whether there's actually a necessity or, whether there's a customer actually waiting, just for the sake of working from 9 to 5, that's not the new world. So if you want really to see results, and that's probably hopefully which matters, then whether you work from distance or from the office, that actually doesn't matter. And also does not matter whether the person works 9 hours on it or 2 hours on it, because it's a result you would then actually then monitor or check afterwards or in between with progresses. I admit that there are jobs where it is required to work from 9 to 5, just an example, because it's a call center and you can easily do call centers, from home. In that case, I understand and I respect that you need to have some tools actually to make sure that your people work. It's not necessary that your people work from 9 to 5, but it's actually your customers can reach your company from 9 to 5. That's something you can easily measure, of course, by counting, whether how many customers you saw, whether there are any customers you actually lost and who just gave up and just left the call, whatever. These are, I think, but this is probably the kind of the less part. This is something which was already in the office time. Even during the office time, people can do whatever they want. And, if you don't want to control, or if you control, then you see the results. But there's no big difference between whether you're home or base or in the office space. But really the strong message from my side is, if you focus on people should work from 9 to 5, regardless whether you get results or not, this is actually not what the new world can bring you. So you have to decide, okay, there are jobs which are 9 to 5 because it's you have to be there for customers who need these opening hours. That's something where you really need to implement additional measures, additional, checkpoints with your people. But in most of the cases where it's much more result driven, it's only the result actually you should check. And I'm not talking about the end result. I'm talking about the progress report. And it's your job as a leader to check the progress, closely with your team member. And again, that doesn't matter, whether the person was working exactly between 9 to 5 or during the night, as long as the result is there.
So if I can just put in my 2 cents, because I know we are short on time and I'll try to capsulize and keep it concise. I just want to add in something that's very simple and basic. And when we speak of leadership, sometimes it's very essential, all the time, it's very essential to detangle and make things as simple as possible for people to resonate and to make things easier for others. Just technical practices that coaching and monitoring that I've been following, and being a coach and being someone who works with teams, I do this a lot. We've started adapting a lot of unofficial means. So sending an email across to multiple time zones and then CCing it and then getting responses becomes a little tougher when it comes to monitoring now, because you don't meet in the office 9 to 5, but you can always set up a virtual office. So what works is, instead of setting up a WhatsApp group where messages get sort of lost, set up a Facebook group and make that a virtual office. What is that you are not there and to coach, you can aid with you. So you can reach it there, you can spread your message forward, you can pin it to the top and everyone will be able to see it if you want to get across an important message. You can always schedule a time for everyone to join you. And if they can't, they can see it later. C, the third thing is, everyone is connected on a platform, and generally Facebook groups is serving me well here, where they're connected and at the same time they can use hashtags. So everyone when someone has to look up something, they can find it. People can send direct messages, and it's much easier to monitor, as opposed to other unofficial means of, or sort of casual means of communication or formal means of communication that we were used to, which were emails. And so this really works. When you're coaching, if you need to communicate, by all means, put on your camera, fix your lighting, and set across your message. Record it and just send it. People will come back to it. And the next day you can follow up. So these are 2 things that I tend to practice.
Thank you so much, Rumaisa. Thank you for that answer. I think that one of our audience members has another question for us, actually, who is in Zoom. So if one second, please. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read everything at the same time. It's a little bit difficult at times, so please bear with me. Okay, so Nuruddin Kreetz, please forgive me if I've mispronounced your name. I am very sorry. I see that you have a question. Go for it.
Thank you, thanks a lot. I just want to add something to what our colleagues added right now. Let us treat this incident where everyone is sitting at home a day before we left the office and came back home and sat at home for those 2-3 months, the coronavirus. Let us treat it as like when a new employee joined the company or the organization. What do you offer him? You offer him a laptop, you offer him a desk, you offer him a business card, you offer him a chair, you offer him a pen, a pencil. So let us treat our colleagues the same. So when we say that we are going to deal virtually and contact virtually and meet virtually, so let us provide him a checklist. And in that checklist, first of all, he might need an iPhone. He does not have an iPhone that supports an excellent Zoom facility. He might need an internet with a speed service he does not have. Maybe he has a week, so he's paying like $5 per month, where the Zoom needs to be professional, needs to have $20 or $30 per month. Maybe he needs a small desk, maybe he needs a chair, maybe he needs a light to be in front of him, maybe he needs a stand to put his mobile in to fix it, so that when we talk professional. When we meet together, we feel comfortable and professional, because I might be invited to a Zoom call to another team member where it's not my normal office team. So I need to look professional, really, not interrupted by the internet, not interrupted by my mobile because it's low charge or. So this is really what I thought of, in addition to what our colleague said, to train the staff how to use the mobile or the Zoom facilities or any other facility, to coach him, buddy him. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, really.
Thank you very much, Nuruddin. Thank you for that. Would any of our experts like to comment on that?
Well, I think it's very, very well said. We sometimes forget the most basic things. Yes, it's true. We are in a new situation. We need to adapt. We need to reinvent ourselves, but we also need to take care of basic, simple things, like making sure that our employees, our colleagues, our peers, our team members have the necessary material to work with. Thank you very much for that little reminder, which is huge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Anybody else?
Mr.
No, I believe that was, you hit the nail on the head when we say.
Okay.
Sorry, I believe both of you want to answer, but we have plenty of time for that. So, Rumaisa, please, if you could answer.
Yeah, no, I just said I believe you hit the nail on the head. We just need to reboot and revisit, and the needs of our team also falls beyond. We look at wellness and we look at compassion and we look at addressing mental health, but really smaller things are also essential. So when we invest in the human factor, we need to invest and we need to be mindful and take care of their basic needs. Right now, my basic need is to literally fix my electricity.
Thank you, Rumaisa. Hamza, I believe you were.
Yeah, I like what Mr. Nuruddin talked about, which is, we need to think of the environment of our colleagues, of our people, And we need to make sure they have the right technology, the right tools, because it's the same as Mr. Nuruddin said, same as the office. You in the country, maybe it's cheaper if they work on, if they don't work in the office, and where you utilize the office for some other some other functions. So really, yeah, looking at these details is important. It's a biggie. So you make sure that your people have the right tools so they connect with you and feel that they are not alone and lonely. They feel part of the team. Absolutely.
Thank you, Hamza. Sonmi, would you like to answer this as well, or shall we move on to the next question?
James, I think there was a new question which I thought was quite interesting, just popping up in our Zoom meeting.
Yes, exactly. I will be reading it just now, which is, too much of virtual is causing Zoom fatigue. How do we handle that? So I believe that what they're trying to tell us is that using the things virtually so much is causing us to feel fatigue. Like, for example, using Zoom so much, because right now we depend on that to speak. Please, the person that asked this question, if I am wrong, please correct me, because I can't read your mind. So Zoom fatigue, how do we handle that?
If I may just give 2 cents here. Lockdown fatigue, and a lot of lockdown fatigue is technical fatigue, when we're using a lot of on-screen time and we get very exhausted, especially when we can't all talk at the same time and really capsulize our timing. But where we can benefit here is, what we can do is, it's very essential to structure our time. So the first thing that we do when we wake up, it's not essential for us to switch on our phones and see what's going on. Those notifications have already come, so that time has already passed. The first hour of our day, we need to reboot ourselves. When we do that, I just like to talk about a 20-20-20 principle. As soon as we wake up, the first 20 minutes that we have in the day, we can call it the victory hour. So the first 20 minutes of the victory hour, we can invest in exercising. That really boosts our spirits, and that really boosts our metabolism as a whole. It gives us energy. Instead of reaching out for that caffeine, we can actually use our happy chemicals, bring them out. The second 20 minutes can be dedicated to something that will add value to where you add value. So you do not need to come on screen. You can actually utilize that in doing something that is concrete, like learning a particular skill that can be utilized during the day. The third 20 minutes, please, by all means, and I do that with everyone I work with, spend the third 20 minutes to self-reflect, to meditate, to take time out for yourself. Taking time out is very essential to beat online fatigue. That reduces your online time. Then you can move to your online life or your work life. Also, it's very essential to limit screen time. You can say that I am facing Zoom fatigue. Someone will understand that. Not if it becomes an excuse, but if it's genuine. That's also where I say have groups where you can revisit later if your time zone is different. Anything that is pulling you down and affecting your health is just going to take away from your productivity. So yes, Zoom fatigue is that. Do not give in to it. It's as simple as that.
If I may, James.
It's like to say, use that golden hour.
Thank you, Rumaisa. I believe Sonmi would like to answer this question.
So sorry, I was almost interrupting. So I think everybody here experienced workshops where we entered the room at 9 and then left the room at 5. And in between, we were allowed to drink coffee for 15 minutes and having lunch break of 1 hour if we are very glad. So what I see now working from distance, I always work from distance, not just during this lockdown, is my kind of learning is that whether it's Zoom or whatever, this virtual conversation, I'm not talking about just, doing, kind of sending messages. That for me is even worse. But this virtual meeting is so focused and so intense because it's different whether you talk to your partner or your colleague sitting next to you, where you have this conversation, but sometimes there's also some 30 seconds where nobody talks. But try to do that, in a Zoom meeting and nobody talks for 30 minutes. It never happens because we have this impression that we need to keep going. So because it's so intense, what I experience is that actually the maximum time you can do, here is a different situation because it's a panel discussion. But if it's a very intense team meeting where you change and exchange and train and whatever, the maximum time is really 1 hour. And make sure even your workshop is now transferred into an online kind of thing. Do a 1 hour meeting, having a break almost for another hour, and then continue another hour, but that's a maximum. I was trying to do workshops, to join workshops for 4 hours, and I kind of, saw myself, being in the kitchen actually then, preparing my meal instead, because I could not follow for 4 hours. It's humanly simply not possible. So if you are just very mindful that, and the question is fantastic, just remind, just remember every time, just as a kind of a maximum of 1 hour, intense discussion, intense communication via this online tool, but then take a break, as Rumaisa is advising us. Whatever it works for you, that's the interval you should follow. But be mindful as a leader that you schedule these things in that way. You are absolutely mindful that this, really absorbs the entire energy of your people.
Yeah, can I also add a little comment, please? Very quickly. I think that it's not just the Zoom meeting hours that we have to control and that we have to somehow organize, as Sonmi just told us, but I think we should also teach our team members that they need short breaks in between working hours. Like if you're in the office, you get up to go to the toilet, you get up to go get a cup of coffee, you receive a phone call and you interrupt what you're doing and you disconnect. The brain needs those breaks. The brain needs to get off the computer for a few minutes to turn around and talk to your next table peer and make a joke and crack a joke and laugh. So we have to tell our people, listen, you need to take breaks every hour or every hour and a half. You need to actually physically stand up, move, stretch your arms, stretch your body. You need to dance like Sonmi is doing. You really need to give a break, your brain a little break. And that applies to everybody, leader and no leader. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, can I add something?
Of course.
See, basically, we need to move. Yes, we need to move. And what I do in my sessions is telling the audience from time to time to do the unbelievable. And the unbelievable is easy. Everybody gets up and they do like this, unbelievable. And if they do it with enthusiasm, they change their physiques and they feel a lot better and they will not have that physique. You want to do it together? Let's do it together. 1, 2, 3. Unbelievable. Yes.
Wow.
And you would feel unbelievable.
It's very
really, you'd feel good. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. This is my 2 cents.
Thank you so much.
It's a good way to stretch it out, and I love it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm afraid that actually concludes our time for answering these questions and for our roundtable discussion of today. May I remind our audience before we leave and say thank you to everyone, that to all of our participants, if you would like to know more about the International Institute of Humanology, or if you don't know us yet and just want more information overall, please send us your email details at info@instituteofhumanology.com, where we will gladly answer all of your questions and try and have a chat. So thank you. Please write to us. We are happy to hear from you. Then what I would like to add is that for all of the people that are listening today and to all of our wonderful participants, first of all, thank you so much for attending and participating. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I would like to invite all of you to our next roundtable discussion that will be about online teaching and more. So that concludes our roundtable discussion for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.